Hello, my name is Mr. Anderson, and I am mean to people on the internet. I'm always very polite about it, though. I just tend to ask difficult questions and insist on the answers. That is, in part, of course, because I am a lawyer. On my channel, you will find a lot of stuff to do with debate. In particular, I do a lot of things to do with adapting some of the techniques that we use as lawyers to force the reluctant and obstreperous to face the truth, and adapting those to people to use in normal debates. So you'll find a lot of videos about debate technique, and you'll also find videos with debates themselves where I put those techniques into practice and show you that they do in fact work against a resisting opponent. Now, one particularly wily resisting opponent is a man named Dr. Kent Hovind. Now, Dr. Hovind is a doctor in the same way that Dr. Seuss is a doctor, which is to say, like, not at all. Actually, hang on. Yeah, Dr. Seuss wasn't a doctor. Oh, he got an honorary degree from Dartmouth in '55, so I guess he's more of a doctor than Kent Hovind. Anyway, Dr. Hovind is a young Earth creationist. Young Earth creation is one of my favorite subjects to use as an example for how to use some of these techniques, because, I mean, although we all know that it's not true, these guys, in particular Kent Hovind, are very good at avoiding that fact and making it difficult for you to prove it. So it's a great sort of environment to demonstrate what I know how to do. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with young Earth creationism, it is the belief that the world was created more or less in its present form about 6,000 years ago, and that Noah's flood was a real historical event that accounts for all of the geologic column, including all of the fossils that we find in the geologic column. So all the dinosaur fossils, all the fossils that go from before the dinosaurs, every layer of dirt, every instance of radioactive decay, everything is all happened during Noah's flood, from at least the Cambrian to the Cretaceous, and sometimes they even throw in the Ice Ages. But the important thing for our conversation is that Noah, according to Kent Hovind, saved 2 of every kind of animal, and then all of the diversity of life that we see today is descended from those kinds. But kinds cannot turn into other kinds. So a dog is always going to bring forth another dog, never anything else. And in our first debate, which I recommend you go and watch and like and subscribe to the channel, Hovind and I had a lengthy discussion about exactly what the definition of kind was. And today we're going to pick up where we left off and talk about some examples. He was supposed to have gone away and thought about some examples, and that's where we reconvene. And so this debate is going to prove even more fiery than the first one, so you guys are in for a treat. Let's watch.
All right, here we are. We are live on Standing for Truth. My name is Donnie, and I am your host and moderator for tonight's much anticipated round 2 debate between Dr. Dino and Mr. Anderson. Specifically, the proposition for tonight's debate is, can any living thing bring forth other than according to its kind? And I'm excited for this. Debate number 1 was certainly a debate to remember. There was a ton of feedback on that debate, which is why there is a lot of hype, Mr. Anderson and Dr. Dino, for round 2. And so it's good to see everybody in the audience here as well. Gentlemen, we're going to have a good, clean debate. We're ready to duke it out in the debate octagon. And so with that, Mr. Anderson, let's start with you. Let's hand it over to you. We'll do two things at once. Firstly, brief intro, kind of get acquainted, a little bit about yourself, and then also just jump into some opening words and arguments for us tonight. Mr. Anderson, go ahead.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is round two of a debate between me, Mr. Anderson. I'm a lawyer in out west, and Dr. Kent Hovind, Doctor of Creationism with a specialty in criticizing evolution. Now, the plan for today is that I'm going to summarize what happened in our debate last time. We're going to talk about whether or not Dr. Hovind found any examples of cancers living outside the body, which is something he wanted some time to check. And then I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Hovind to ask me some questions about any of the things that we touched on last time or that we touched on this time. So by way of summary, last time we made a lot of progress, I think, towards reaching some common ground and tackling the question of whether anything can ever bring forth other than its kind. We talked about some of the basic presumptions that we use when thinking about the world, which we refer to as the October 13th Protocol. And we made some progress towards defining what a kind was. Dr. Hovind said that with sufficient morphological changes, such as growing wings or growing gills and being able to breathe underwater, and an inability to interbreed with an ancestral population, that can, at least in some circumstances, make an animal a new kind. But he shied away from giving a hard yes on whether that was his definition of a kind. So we have kind of a tentative soft yes with respect to what a kind is. And then Dr. Hovind goes on later in our discussion to give a little more particularity, and he reiterated that according to the Bible, the essential quality of a kind is the ability to bring forth, and that if you're unsure, then see if the animals interbreed, and they'll tell you whether or not they are the same kind. He further suggested that in many ways, a kind is the same thing as a species because the dictionary often lists kind and species as synonyms. So overall, we have a fairly good working definition of the term kind. It refers to a group of animals that are interfertile and usually, though not always, share morphological traits. One test for whether two things are the same kind is if they can interbreed, and the same pen test, put them in the same pen and see if they interbreed, is the ultimate litmus test of this. Lastly, some of the various characteristics or details of the various definitions of the word species can be used to augment our understanding of the word kind if necessary. I pointed out that based on his definition, if we use the same pen methodology, that Chihuahuas and wolves are not the same kind, because Chihuahuas and wolves in the same pen will not interbreed. Most likely the wolves would just eat the Chihuahuas. Dr. Hovind's response was that Chihuahuas are barely dogs and that maybe they could interbreed genetically and that wolves can interbreed with coyotes. Ultimately, despite this being one of the key definitions in one of the core areas of his field of specialty, Dr. Hovind wanted the opportunity to think about things a little more, and so hopefully he can now either refine his definition or get back to us with a hard yes on what a kind is. Naturally, if I'm incorrect in terms of my summary of his criteria for defining a kind, I'm sure he'll correct any inaccuracies. Then we began to discuss an example of something that Dr. Hovind would consider to be a different kind. And Dr. Hovind agreed that if cells in my body decided to become single-celled creatures and live as single-celled creatures, rather than being part of my body, that those cells would be a new kind. Specifically, he was asked the following question and gave the following answer. Question: I want to nail this down. You're telling me that if the cells in my body decided that they're not going to cooperate and be a part of my body anymore, they're going to do their own thing, they're going to live as single-celled creatures, that's a different kind. Those cells are a different kind, right? Answer: I will give that a qualified yes. To my understanding of your question, Your Honor, I think that probably a different kind. Later, I explained to Dr. Hovind that this example was not hypothetical. It in fact describes the process that occurs when a person develops cancer, or at least certain types of cancer, and cited some papers in support of this assertion. Dr. Hovind then suggested that perhaps this did not count if the cancer cannot live on its own outside the body. I showed him a paper that suggested cancer could be transplanted and live in mice. Dr. Hovind suggested he would like some time to think about this, and so of course we adjourned as time was long anyways. Now we're back. Dr. Hovind, have I fairly described our interactions at our last debate?
Well, it's my turn to talk. Are you done?
Yeah. No, go ahead and correct
Okay.
anything.
Yeah, before you talk, Kent, I appreciate it, Mr. Anderson. Thank you very much. Kent, take equal time, roughly 6 minutes or so. And so we'll hand it to you. Floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay. First, I have to say hello to Jackie in Indiana, Bobby's sister. Hi, Jackie. She's watching here. Okay. Come on down. That's eventually. Well, multiple things here. I think a wolf and a Chihuahua could interbreed if you just if you genetically mix it. Maybe there's some mechanical problems. The Chihuahua can't reach very high. But certainly, I think if you took the sperm and egg from the two different ones, you could get the dogs and wolves are interfertile. Dogs and coyotes and dogs, they're the same kind of animal. A 4-year-old will tell you that. So the Bible says they bring forth after their kind. Joe got some kind of program to type out in word format or in text format. It doesn't always get it right. Okay, you need to understand maybe some. This is what they call that. Transcriber. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't have time to mess with it at all. I worked down here for a living. Let's see. So you want to know your answer that if your cells of your arm could disintegrate and go into single cell, would that be a different kind? They'd still be human cells. I don't understand how that has any evidence for evolution. It's still a human cell, and it was still alive to start with. Tell you what, take some dirt out of the ground and make it come alive. I'd like to see that. Okay. So you want to talk about your counterexample, fit the bill, amoebas. You want to get to amoeba? Let's see. This is just from the thing. Well, how is it another cell? Are humans rats? How is it not another kind? New scientists said the mosquito can bite a wide range of animals. So the mosquito can live on, let's say, dog blood, cat blood, cow blood, hamster blood, human blood. Still a mosquito. Same thing with ticks. They live on all kinds of different animals. Same tick. The cancer cell can live in quite a few different creatures, cancer cells. So if you take a cancer cell from a human, put it into a mouse, I don't understand how that's evidence for evolution. Lice can live on all kinds of different animals, cats, dogs, humans, etc. Okay? So your logic is that a cancer cell can grow into a tumor and then break apart, and one piece can now grow in a rat. And that's evidence that all life forms came from an amoeba. I don't understand how you guys cannot see how dumb this is to take this example and say, wow, this cancer cell can be moved to a rat. Therefore, we're all related to an amoeba. Or here we go. Your lines on paper with, related to a pine tree. I don't understand how anybody cannot see the stupidity in this. These family trees they put in our textbooks are nothing but propaganda. This is artwork. This is pictures with lines drawn between them. There is no evidence of a human and a bird having a common ancestor. We have common designer, but the textbooks continually say all the many forms of life on Earth today are descended from a common ancestor found in a population of primitive unicellular organism. This is pure propaganda. Apparently you fell for it when you were schooled and you believe it, or maybe you like to believe it because it gives you freedom from a creator, but says no traces of those events remain. So it's a loss of function for something to become cancerous. There's lots of studies done on this about how the metastasis process which cancer cells spread from an initial or primary site to a different or secondary site. That happens, okay? Saying, here we go, here we show that metastasis is driven by positive selection for generation loss of function. Scientists have been trying to understand why people get cancer. They come up with a theory that suggests cancer can happen when something goes wrong with the genes that are responsible for keeping our cells communicating. You think degradation of the cells and degradation of the information transmission process, degrading, is going to change an amoeba to a whale and a human and a pine tree. I don't understand how anybody could believe such a thing. Studies suggest they looked at a type of tumor. They found this tumor spreads to other parts of the body. Gene cells are important for keeping cells working together. Do you think cancer is a good thing? I don't think the mouse wants it. I don't think the human wants it. Found the genes used for the tumor were being used less than normal. They're not doing their job properly. So it's similar to how cells behave in the early stages of life when they grow, multiply without limits during pregnancy, go from single cell to whole baby, 9 pounds, 8 pounds in just a short time. Evolutionary scientists believe that when animals with many cells started to evolve 600 million years ago, there was an increase in the number of new genes that now protect them from cancer. This whole idea, though, that you took an hour and a half of trying to get me to agree to things I wasn't sure I wanted to agree to, trying to trick me into trap me in a little box. I think the Bible is clear. They bring forth after their kind. Man has decided it's important to us to put the animals in categories. The animals do not care at all, okay? But we like to put there are 8 different kinds of squirrels, okay? And they can all interbreed. And they probably had a common ancestor called a squirrel. They don't care that we put them in a box called squirrel. They don't even know. But you're so intent on trying to define the word kind in such a way that allows you to make these stupid charts with the family trees with everything related. They bring forth after their kind. My contention is, and I got tons of notes on all this stuff from what little time I had to work on this. My contention is there is no evidence anywhere in the universe of any animal bringing forth a different kind of offspring. Cows make cows, dogs make dogs, cats make cats. There are no exceptions. If one gets a cancer and the cancer cell is able to be transmitted, for heaven's sake, all kinds of diseases can be transmitted through the air. The idea that because a cancer cell can be moved to a different animal, it is therefore now evidence for evolution, I think is insane, okay? There is no evidence of any animal. Is that your evidence is, so far, that a cancer cell is evidence for evolution because it can, oh, hang on, there. It can now live in a new host. I think most people are laughing about that. So I'm sorry, time's up. Give me your second best evidence. He's muted.
I was on mute. Yeah. We're both on mute. So, Ken, hopefully you're a good lip reader. Okay, thanks for that opening statement and response. Mr. Anderson, we'll pass it back to you if you wanted to pick a point or two for us to engage. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, sir, we're not quite done with the first best evidence here today, and I'm actually not even sure it's the best evidence. It's just the first one. Okay. But you know, I certainly look forward to our discussion here. So, and to be clear, sir, this is not a debate about whether or not evolution is true or whether or not whales evolved from amoebas or anything like that. This isn't. I'm not trying to prove evolution right. I'm not trying to prove creationism wrong. I'm just saying you're wrong with respect to whether or not anything can bring forth other than its kind. And whether it's an increase of information or a decrease of information, if it changes kind, it changes kind. But you know what? We'll get more into that. Let's just let's focus on what we have in front of us here. So the next thing that I wanted to get into here was I had just a few questions about the homework that you were supposed to do about cancer surviving outside the body. And then once you answer those, then it's going to be your turn for the rest of the night if you want. Now, it's about 15 questions, unless you're evasive and I have to do follow-ups or rephrase the question or ask it again. And if you don't give me straight answers, that's what I'm going to do. So this could be done in like 5 to 10 minutes, or it could take the rest of the night. And whichever it is going to be up to you. Do you understand?
I don't think so, but go ahead.
You don't understand that it's going to take longer if you don't give me straight answers?
I always give you straight answers.
Okay, and you understand that things are not going to be quick if you don't give me straight answers, right?
I understand you're a lawyer. You come from the word attorney, which means to twist. So I'm very cautious about you twisting things. But go ahead, start talking.
All right, sir. We're gonna start off on the right foot. So you're gonna answer my questions and you're gonna answer them straight. You understand that I'm not going to I'm gonna keep asking the question until I get a straight answer. You understand that, right?
I understand that's your modus operandi. Yes, I think I give straight answers. Perfect. Cows always make cows.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's try and make this as quick as we can. So you would agree with me that you have now had the opportunity during a period of just under 3 weeks to research specifically, as you said you wanted to, whether it is possible for cancer to live outside the body, right?
I believe we said I would try to do that. I don't think you understand. We have 30 people on our staff and visitors coming all the time. We're building things. I did not do a thorough job of researching all of that yet. I didn't know that was my homework. Are you the teacher now and you assign homework? I think that cancer cells cannot get a cancer cell and lay it out in the sunlight with not in any body. It won't survive. It has to be in a host. The cancer cell requires nutrients from some kind of host, whether it be a human or a rat or a mosquito. It requires a host. So no, a cancer cell cannot live outside the body.
Well, we're going to get to that, sir. We are definitely going to get to that. Okay. But you will agree with me that you have had the opportunity to research that, right?
No, I've had 3 weeks just like you've had. Let's see, I flew to New York. Did a wedding, spoke at a church up there. We had a lot going on here. So I don't think I need to do much more research on it. A cancer cell cannot live outside of a host.
Yeah.
Period.
So you will agree with me, sir, that you did have time. You could have lost an hour of sleep at some point during the last 3 weeks, right?
I could have dropped everything else I was doing and focused on this, but I didn't do it. I don't think I need to.
Yeah, and you could have let someone else take give any one of the many tours that you gave over the last 3 weeks, right?
Oh, no, that is much more important to me than this debate. My ministry for the Lord, winning people to the Lord, influencing people, much more important than trying to convince someone who doesn't want to be convinced anyway. So,
yeah. And you could have begged off either your debate with Tom Jump or your open mic night with SFT, both of which occurred over the last 3 weeks, right?
I don't think you run my schedule, sir. What's your evidence for evolution?
Well, sir, before we get to that, I want to talk to you about something. And that's your debate with Tom Jump on October 23rd.
Well, I'm gonna jump in real quick, Mr. Anderson. Firstly, the Tom Jump debate was a re-upload on Tom Jump's channel, so that didn't occur over the last week. Yeah,
all right,
that was from over a year ago.
Never mind then.
And what I do with my time, it's not your business how I spend my time. You don't assign me homework, sir. Now, what's your evidence for evolution?
All right, sir. Look. I was going to try. I'm trying to be charitable to you, but if you want to get into it, hammer and tongs, then we can. So, sir, you didn't do your homework, which you assigned yourself, by the way.
I do want to jump in real quick before we continue. Kent did spend a few minutes in his opening going over a couple slides dealing with the cancer argument, and so he did put forth some responses, and I'm feeling like we might want to engage those.
Well, sir, here's what I want to engage. So, sir, in your travels over the last 3 weeks, did you find any examples of cells that could live on their own, cancer cells that could live on their own outside of the body?
Well, I think any cell can live for a very, very short time. You can I banged my head pretty hard today and bled on the ground. I'm sure the blood cells lasted a few minutes or a few seconds. But no, they cannot live a long term outside of a host. Neither can a cancer cell. Do you know of a cancer cell? Do you know of a cancer cell that can live a long time on its own outside the body? Take it out, lay it on the table. How long does it live?
Well, sir, I don't think anything can live very long on a table if it doesn't have food. I mean, I don't think that's even true.
You got it. So that's your assignment now. I'm the teacher. I want you to find me a cell that can live a long time outside the body.
Okay. Now, if I do that, let's say first, let's clarify that. Let's clarify this. So, I want to clarify my assignment. So, now what you mean, because like I said, even if you put bacteria in like a completely sterile environment, it's going to die. That's why they put it in a petri dish, and it's got that brown stuff on the bottom. It's called agar. It's bacteria food, right?
Right.
So a bacteria is going to need that to grow. But I mean, what I'm understanding you're asking me for, what I understand my assignment to be, is not like. Let me put it this way, and I checked this, right? You can't grow steak in a petri dish, right? Like if you put a tissue from a multicellular creature in a petri dish with agar, it's not going to grow. It'll just die. And that's generally true of cancerous tumors too. And I think that's what you meant. Like cancerous tumors do not persist and reproduce in a petri dish like bacteria do.
Right.
They need a blood supply. They need all that kind of stuff. And if you treat those tumors like they're bacteria, they're going to die. That what you meant?
Wait, I answered your question without taking any time away from my ministry or my wife or my family or anything. I answered your question. Cancer cells cannot live outside of a body.
Yeah.
So
what you're saying is that a cancer cell from a human can't live in a petri dish. Right?
No, yeah, no, you put it in a petri dish, you're giving it nutrients.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd have to give bacteria nutrients, right?
You can't.
So
Everything.
you're treating it the same as bacteria.
Any living cell needs nutrients from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Your question was, can it live outside of a body? The answer is no.
Right.
So next topic, please.
Yeah, no, not next topic, sir. I want to be clear. You said you want to assign me some homework. You want to ask me to find an example of cells that can live on their own, and I'm assuming you mean in a petri dish, just like a bacteria,
in a sterile environment, because you're still feeding them.
Sterile environment, sir. If you took a human baby and you put it in a sterile environment, you didn't give it food, you didn't give it anything, is it going to live?
No.
So how stupid is that example?
I think it's stupid.
You need to give it access to food, right? For it to be a fair example.
I'm going to jump in because a little bit of crosstalk there. I just want to make sure. I do appreciate it, gentlemen. I do want to make sure that the audience is hearing all the relevant points. So, Kent, if you could reiterate or finish your thoughts there, then we'll throw it back to you, Mr. Anderson.
As I said several times, I'll say it one more time slowly. A cancer cell cannot live outside of a body. It has to have some kind of source of nutrients. You want to put it in a petri dish, that's the surrogate mother for a short time so it can still get food. No, it cannot live without that. I answered your question. The cancer cell cannot live outside of a body unless you want to artificially keep it going. You have to give it food. So I did my homework.
And I just want to be clear, sir. I was understanding you to like, because you are correct in that if I take, any given cell from my body and I put it in a petri dish, it's not going to live. It's going to die pretty quickly. And I thought that's what you meant. Is it not?
Your question from last debate was, can a cancer cell live outside of a body? You can put it into a mouse's body and it still lives. You didn't take away the nutrients.
Right.
You gave it another host. That's not evolution.
So we're talking about treating it like bacteria, right?
Same bacteria wouldn't live without nutrients.
Yeah, I know. That's my point. That's a point on my side.
That's my point, and that's my side. I win.
No, sir, you're not even okay. Let's try this another way. Try this another way. All right, hang on a second here. Okay. So, sir, you'll agree with me that all things die if they don't have access to food, right?
Well, I plan to live forever in heaven. I don't know what God's going to do about that up there. He promised eternal life to those that would believe on Jesus Christ. I'm not sure how that works. We need food. Don't know.
Okay. Other than that, you'll agree with me that all things die if they don't have access to food, right?
It certainly appears that way. Everything we've seen, it has to have some kind of access to. Some can hibernate quite a long time without it. Go into estivation or hibernation. There's several different stages of inactivity that things seem to shut down.
Right. Sir, I mean, you're burning your own time here. You're going to get less time asking questions if you want to wander off topic like this. So look, not giving cells any food, that doesn't really make a lot of sense in terms of testing a prediction, does it?
No, but it makes perfect sense as far as what you said could happen. It's now a new kind because it can live on its own. No, it can't.
Can live on its own and eat bacteria food. Does that help you?
You want to keep feeding the thing.
Yeah, bacteria food. I want to feed it bacteria food. I want to treat it like bacteria. And my premise to you is that if you take a cancer cell and you put it in a petri dish and you don't do anything else other than leave it in that petri dish and it lives just like a bacteria would live, that's a different kind, right?
And if it ate all the food in the petri dish, would it then die? Are you going to come replenish it some? Are you now the new mother? You're going to keep feeding it?
Sir, do you want to answer my question? Do you want me to ask it again? Do you remember what it was?
No, I want you to answer mine.
I asked you first, so you answer mine first.
The cell would live in a petri dish maybe until it ran out of food. But you're the one that brought it the food. You're the mother.
That's cool and everything, sir. That wasn't my question. My question was a really simple question.
Okay.
So you agree with me that if a cell is taken out of the body and put in a petri dish and lives indefinitely so long as it has food, that's a different kind than the human or whatever animal it is that it came from, right?
No, I wish you'd stop saying, and you agree with me, because I don't agree with you, okay? No, it is still a human cell extracted from the body. I suppose you could cut off a finger and put it in the right nutrients and make it live for a while so it wouldn't decay. They take a person's heart out and keep it alive for a while to put it in somebody else. But it takes a lot of intelligent people to do that in a food supply in a really complex system. So no, it's not a new kind. It's if you take a heart out of the body and keep it alive artificially for a while, is it a new kind? No, it's a human heart. Same thing with a cell.
Were you asked the following questions and did you give the following answers on October 13th, 23?
Here we go.
Question. I just want to nail this down. You're telling me that if cells in my body decided they're not going to cooperate and be a part of my body anymore, they're going to do their own thing, they're going to live as single-celled creatures, that's a different kind. Those cells are a different kind, right? Answer, I will give that a qualified yes. To my understanding of your question, Your Honor, I think that probably a different kind. Were you asked those questions and did you give those answers, sir?
That's why I gave it a qualified yes. But if you're going to keep feeding,
were you asked those questions and did you give those answers? Yes or no?
You were asked. I was asked those questions.
Did you give those?
I'm going to jump in, Mr. Anderson, please. I want to have a good, clean, fair debate.
Answer the question, then.
I just want to point out, if you disagree with something, Mr. Anderson, this is what I want to do from now on. Can't you finish your thoughts? Note down what you disagree with in his answer, then respond. If Kent, and then other way around too. I think that's the best way to be fair. So Kent, go ahead, and then we'll throw it back to Mr. Anderson.
I think this shows clearly the desperation evolutionists have to make a new kind to prove the Bible wrong. If you take the cells of your arm and disintegrate it and keep the cells alive in a petri dish, that's not a new kind. If it can keep alive on its own, do it. Throw it out in the woods, and it grows into something new. I might think about that one. But no, I did not agree that it's a new kind and it violates the Bible kind by you're disintegrating your arm cells, and each cell is able to live in a petri dish. You didn't mention petri dish last time. If you take the cells of your body away from your body, they will die. Okay, they die. There are no examples of a cell coming out of one organism and going into something new on its own. It has to have a new host or somebody to feed it food in the petri dish. You guys are so desperate to believe your dumb religion of evolution. I wish you could see it. Go ahead.
So, Donnie, this is why I interrupted Dr. Hovind, because none of that was responsive to my question. So I trust that you'll appreciate now why I interrupted him. So now, sir, once again, did you give those answers? Were you asked those questions, and did you give those answers on October 13th, 2023?
I think if you'll listen carefully to my answer on October 13th, I said I'll give that a qualified yes.
Okay.
Didn't I?
So the answer to my question... Sorry, go ahead.
Did I read it back to me? I've got it in my script here too. Did I say I will give that a qualified yes?
I will give that a qualified yes. To my understanding of your question, Your Honor, I think that probably a different kind.
Right. I thought at that time your question was, if you take it away, can it live on its own and become a new kind? The answer now would be no. It has to have another host to live off of, or somebody to babysit it and feed it new food in the petri dish. If you're going to keep feeding it and taking care of it, it's not a new kind. Can it live on its own? No.
So sir,
no, you're really desperate to make a new kind out of a cell off your arm. It's not a new kind. It's a human cell. It started off with incredible complexity, 46 chromosomes, with enough DNA code to go from here to the moon, and you think it happened by chance? And by the fact that you can get it to live in a petri dish now makes it a new kind and proves evolution?
No, sir, I'm not trying to prove evolution. as you well know, because I've told you that, I don't know, 4 times. But and this, again, Donnie, is why I was being stern with Dr. Hovind. So, sir, were you asked those questions and did you give those answers?
I was asked those questions. To my recollection, I gave the answer that it would be qualified.
And were those answers truthful?
They were truthful, and they're still truthful.
Okay, and you adopt them today.
Your
you adopt them today,
truthful.
right?
Your question was not truthful, though.
Sir,
you didn't say
Guys, there's a little bit of crosstalk. Let's make sure that the audience
you
can
did
hear
not
both.
say it could. You did not say it could live
me when I'm
if we
asking you a
babysit
question,
it.
sir. And you adopt those answers today, right?
I will clarify it for you. I'll clarify my qualifications. If a cell could be taken out of a body and live with nobody babysitting it, nobody feeding it, and turns into something different, I think that might be something to consider. It's never happened. I mean, if a cow could jump over the moon, what would happen? It's a fairy tale story. You're not helping your evolution theory at all. You're showing that you're so desperate to make a new kind out of a cell that comes off your arm. Why is this so important to you?
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
Why is it so important to you? Are you trying to prove the Bible wrong? They said they bring forth after their kind. A cancer cell out of a human put into a mouse is still a cancer cell. It still has a host. That's not helping the theory. You guys believe the amoeba came from a rock up by itself, and the amoeba turned into all kinds of things. So that amoeba had to grow arms, legs, wings, heart, lungs, all kinds of new features.
Sir, we're not even talking about that right now. So I'm going to try and bring it back to, hey, come on, I let you talk. Don't interrupt me. We need to have a clean transcript here, sir. We have an audience that's trying to listen to us, okay? So, sir, I put it to you that if a cell, a cancer cell, can live in the same manner as bacteria, that it is living as a single-celled creature. Would you agree with that?
Not if you have to keep babysitting it and feeding it. It's not living on its own at all.
All right.
Like a kid that's 35 still living at home.
That's not my question. My question was, would you agree with me that if a cell is living in the same manner as bacteria is living, that cell is living as a single-celled creature?
I don't think so. I don't know enough about that. The cancer cell, I don't think it's ever been seen to happen. It always have to have a host right away.
But if it did happen, sir, if it did happen, then that would mean that cell is living as a single-celled creature, right?
So let me rephrase. Let's see. If you kiss a frog and it turns to a prince, that would be true.
No, we're not kissing frogs right now, sir. We're talking about if a single-celled creature, if a single cell is living in the same manner as bacteria, then that's that cell living as a single-celled creature, right?
I don't think, living in the same manner as a bacteria, even they have to be fed and have to have a host or they die.
No, I know. That's not my question. My question was very simple.
No, it's not very simple.
Use simpler words? Did you catch it? If a cell, you know what a cell is, right?
I do indeed.
Okay, so a cell is living in the same way as bacteria. You know what bacteria is?
I do.
Okay, so imagine that cell living in the same manner as the bacteria. You got that so far?
Got it.
Okay. Isn't it true that would mean that cell is living like a single-celled creature?
It would be living as long as somebody feeds it and supplies it the nutrients. It is not a new creature.
That wasn't my question either, sir. I'm not sure why you're having trouble with this. Let's go back again.
I'm not having trouble at all, sir. I'm understanding clearly what you're trying to do. Okay.
Well, I think you might be struggling a little bit with the idea of answering a question that you don't like.
To take a cell that's already complex beyond the space shuttle and take it away from its host and give it a new host, either it would be a petri dish or something else. You didn't create anything. That's not a new kind.
I'm not trying to create anything. I'm not trying to create a darned thing. Is darned okay? I don't want to swear in front of your audience.
So I'll go back and say my qualified answer would be, if you took a cell out of a body and kept it alive in some other way, it'd be similar to taking a heart out of somebody and keeping it alive for a while. It's still a human heart. They kept it alive for a few hours till they could do a transplant. That's modern medicine. That's amazing.
Yeah,
But it was already alive.
I mean,
I'll tell you what.
so
Why don't you take a dead cell out of a body and make something out of it?
how about this, sir? How about we take a live cell out of a body and put it in a petri dish?
You're already miles ahead of where you ought to be on this. You want to start with a living cell?
I want to start with a cell that is part of a human body, and then I want to turn that cell into a single-celled creature that's living like it's bacteria. That's what I want to do.
Okay,
and I want you to admit that if parts of my body go from living as part of me to living like bacteria, that's a different kind. But I think you struggle with that because so when you said that to me before, when you said that that if part of my arm were to go, if the cells in my arm were to go and live as single-celled creatures, that would count, that would be a different kind.
Go back and read my answer. I said
I'll give that truthful, right?
I said I'll give you a qualified yes. Now, a question.
Yeah, to the extent of your understanding. You said, yeah, I'll give that a qualified yes to my understanding.
Okay. Why are you spending another hour?
Is there a change in your understanding, sir?
Well, yeah, you're spending an hour in this fairy tale world that if this happened, do you play a lot of video games? You live in a fairy tale world? Look, it doesn't happen. I don't,
actually.
Oh, no. Good. Right. Me neither. No. Good. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, no, I live in the real world, sir.
Me too.
And I'm asking you to join me in that real world. And I'm asking you to acknowledge, sir. I'm asking you to acknowledge your previous statement. So, were you being truthful with me then?
I try to always be truthful. You're not even truthful about your name. Go ahead.
Well, sir, I understand that you're very angry about being put in this uncomfortable position. I understand that it's uncomfortable for you, but there's no reason to lash out at me. I don't think it's a really big deal. I was trying to, I wanted a pseudonym, but that's not really a big deal. So, look, I think you're a lot more uncomfortable right now than I am. But
no, I'm fine.
Oh, you're fine. Good. Perfect. So
I do want to say, gentlemen, we are 40 minutes in. So at this point,
I know, sir. So look, like I said, my intention was for Dr. Hovind to be able to ask me questions, but we're not even getting off the starting block. So here, let me move forward here. So, sir, have you ever heard of the HeLa cancer cells?
I didn't hear part of the words. Has it ever occurred that FEMA, what?
Yeah, I know you don't really listen to what I say. It's all right.
Enunciate clearly. Have I ever heard?
Try not to talk when I'm talking. So, have you ever heard of the HeLa cancer cells?
HeLa? Are you saying K-E-L-A? HeLa?
No, H-E-L-A. It's short for Henrietta Lacks. So Henrietta Lacks, sir, was a poor African-American woman who, I would say, died of cervical cancer in the early 1950s. But in a way, she's still alive today because her cervical cancer cells are immortal. They grow and they double every 20 to 24 hours or so. And they're used across the world to test cancer drugs instead of, or at least before, testing those drugs on people. Now, sir, I put it to you that based on what you know at this moment, this is a specific example of a specific cancer coming out of a specific person and living forever in a petri dish, which is exactly what you asked for. I have fulfilled your homework assignment exactly. Isn't that true?
No, that is not true. Okay, the HeLa, H-E-L-A cancer cell. I'm not familiar with that one. I can do some study. I won't promise that I will, and you don't assign my homework.
Well, sir, you already had 3 weeks to do your.
Oh, yeah. I have nothing else to do but please you. I'm so sorry, Your Honor. Okay. So I'll find out about this black woman. But see, if you eat a cow that was cooked and you incorporate the cow cells into your body, and then you go on living, is the cow still living in you because you ate a steak? This is silly. It still has to have a petri dish or a host. No, it is not a new kind. It's a variation of a cell that was already existing. That's all. Mm-hmm. You can take a V8 engine and put it in a Volkswagen, and you just transplanted something. You can transplant a cell from one host to another, but you can't make a living cell, and you can't make a new kind.
I'm not trying to make a living cell. Who's trying to make a living cell? I thought we agreed that God did that. I'm just trying to get a cell. I'm just trying to get an animal or living creature to change its kind.
Okay, and in your mind, if you took a cancer cell out and put it in a petri dish and it still stays alive for a while, it's a new kind. If you take a human
part, it just stays alive for a while, sir. they've stayed alive indefinitely. So like, I mean, answer me this, sir. Are you suggesting to me that Henrietta Lacks is a 103-year-old person and counting? Or are her cells not really human at this point?
I have no idea where she went, heaven or hell. But
Right.
if she has cancer cells that have survived outside of her body by feeding them in a petri dish, that's not a new kind. You could take a human heart out, feed it in a petri dish for 100 years, maybe, and keep it alive. Is that now we're going to have a new animal, the human heart? No, it's a human heart.
And all the cells in that human heart are being part of a human heart, right?
Well, it's the same. It's an analogy to try to help you understand. Taking a cell.
I'm trying to understand your very, very convoluted logic here, sir.
Keeping a cell alive outside of human body and keeping a human heart alive outside of human body is not making a new kind that's going to violate the scripture. It's still.
Right. I'm not trying to violate the scripture, sir. I don't even think I am,
yes,
because your interpretation of the scripture is probably wrong. Yeah. So it's okay. You can just agree with me. The scripture doesn't have to be wrong. You can just be wrong. So
that's true. I can be wrong.
Yeah, it's easy. It's not that difficult.
And so can you. So can you, by the way. Yeah. So
I'm wrong all the time, but it's not about this. So
on this you are, yeah. But go ahead.
So, sir, you would agree with me that Henrietta Lacks's cells are still alive, right?
I don't know. I didn't study that case. But if she had a cancer cell that they've been keeping alive in a petri dish, she's not still alive. A single cell. If I cut a piece off my hair, if I get a haircut, am I part of me dead? No, it's hair that grows.
We're going to go around and around on this one until you get it. Like, do I have to beat you
it's your choice to go around and round. I wish you'd give an answer to the question: where is the example of a new kind of animal that the Bible says they bring forth after their kind?
Yeah, that's fascinating, sir. So the question I asked you was, you would agree that her cells are alive, right?
I don't know. I said I haven't studied that case.
Okay, based on what you know.
If they took her heart out and kept it alive, is her heart still alive?
That's not the question.
It's a similar question, though. It's an example.
Yeah, I know you want to. I know you'd rather answer like whatever other question, any other question, but the one I asked you. But the question I asked you, and I mean, it's not even a difficult question. I think a 5-year-old could probably answer this one. Based on what you know, you would agree that the cells, Henrietta Lacks's cells, are alive, right?
You're saying if she had a cancer and they took the cancer out and it's now still alive? You're saying that it's her cells?
It's those cells are still alive. They are separating, they're dividing, they're reproducing, and they're growing. That would be alive, right?
That was a cancer that was living in her body. It wasn't her cells.
It is her body, sir. It is her body. It is part of her body, right? It has her DNA in it. It is 99.9999% Henrietta Lacks.
Wow.
A tiny mutation.
If I get time and interest, I will research that. I don't know.
Now, you've already had your chance, sir.
Oh, okay.
Now, sir, based on what you know, you would agree with me that those cells are not really actively being part of her body right now, are they?
You keep saying you would agree with me. Is this a lawyer thing they taught you in school? Or
yeah, it is.
Okay. I'll tell you for the 40th time. I'll do some research on that. It is to keep it alive, though. They would put it in a sterile environment. See if I bet every bit of that would die in a sterile environment.
Sir, I can tell you right now, the cancer cells are not actively being a cervix right now. I tell you that for free, right?
Give them a new host. Give them a new mama to feed them, right?
They don't have a new mama, sir. You can take one of those cells, put it in a petri dish, it'll grow.
Take one of those cells and put it in a sterile environment. What'll happen?
It'll starve like any animal without
bingo. Food. Maybe there's hope.
It's not a bingo, sir. That's it.
Okay.
All right. You know what? We're gonna have to move on.
Yay.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, look, I understand this is uncomfortable for you, sir, but
I'm not uncomfortable.
Got to answer my questions. Oh, just get comfortable then. So, sir, in terms of whether something can live outside the body, you would also agree with me that there are examples of other types of organisms that need a host to survive, like most parasites, right?
I think every living creature on the planet needs a lot of things to survive. I think it's an amazing design that God made, and I give him the glory for it. I have to eat food and drink water and breathe.
Doesn't answer my question whatsoever.
I didn't see a question.
You want to address the question I asked you?
What? I didn't see a question in there. The question is, would I agree that there's lots of different...
I'll ask it again.
Oh, good.
Sir, you would agree with me that there are examples of other types of organisms that need a host to survive, like most parasites, right?
And I answered and said, I think all living organisms need something to survive. All of them.
Yeah, that doesn't answer the question. Sir, isn't it true that most parasites need a host to survive?
As far as I know, yes. I'll give that a qualified yes.
A qualified yes. That qualified yes going to become a qualified no after a little while when you decide that you don't want to admit something anymore?
Or when I do more study and find out the different answer.
All right. Well, subject to you doing more study and finding that that is untrue, I'd like a hard yes then, sir.
Maybe someday I'll give it to you if I can find a hard yes. Okay. All right. Now it's a qualified yes.
Yeah. What's it qualified on?
I don't know because I haven't studied it yet.
Right. Well, and I mean, look, if you're not afraid of my questions that you're just going to refuse to answer them, then you probably shouldn't be debating.
I'm not refusing to answer anything. I've answered.
You've answered that it's yes until it turns out that there's a problem with logically with my answer, in which case I'm just going to change it to
I answered that every living thing.
That's not what qualified yes means, sir. Qualified yes is qualified based on certain specific criteria.
Every living thing on the planet requires something else to live. We need air. We need a variety of things. Proper temperature. I can give you a whole list of those if you'd like.
I don't care. I could care less.
I know you don't care. There are no examples of something living on its own without somebody taking care of it, putting in a petri dish. When they run out of food there, you got to give it more food.
Right.
A little lamb over here, you got to keep feeding the thing. Yep. Go ahead.
So how about this then, sir? So in terms of, let's talk about cancer cells that don't have people taking care of them. Like parasites, animals, I should say, any animal that lives off another animal, but it doesn't exactly have that animal taking care of it. That host animal doesn't want it there. It's living on its own, right? Parasites are living on their own?
No? Think what you just said. It's living in a host that doesn't want it there. Yeah. Well, the host is still supplying food and oxygen and blood supply. This host is providing for it whether it wants to or not. It's like a parent having a 35-year-old living in the house. They don't want him there. Get out of the house, get a job.
Yeah. Sir, I mean, I would suggest to you that
with a definite no. Okay, definite no. It is not living on its own.
I love it. So, sir, I mean, look, when a lion eats an antelope, I mean, I wouldn't say that the antelope, like, oh, the lion's not living on its own because it ate an antelope. It captured the antelope and brought it down, right? Like the lion is taking what it needs in the same way that a leech is taking what it needs. It's not asking you permission. It's not being babysat by you. It's taking what it needs, like all life does, except for photosynthesizing life, right?
No, even that. It takes the oxygen right out of the air, CO2 in that case, if it wants it or not. I just suck in some oxygen, whether the air wants it or not.
If it takes what it needs, it's living on its own, right?
Say that again?
If the animal takes what it needs, it's living on its own. It's on its own steam.
No, it has to have other things to take in. It has to have food and water. And the cancer cell
gets that food on its own, then
it gets it on its own, whether the host wants it or not. So a cancer cell in a body is taking things out of that body that the body doesn't want gone, but the cancer cell is not living on its own. It can't live on its own.
Right. Okay. So it doesn't count if it's actually just part of the body that it came from, right? A cancer cell is fundamentally different from a parasite, is what you're trying to tell me.
Oh, I think cancer is a parasite. It has to, but it eats. Ask any doctor. It eats up the body that it's in.
Well, a cancer cell is part of the body, right? We're talking about parasites. I mean, are you telling me that you don't believe in parasites, or you don't think that parasites count as kinds of animals?
Where'd this question come from? Are you telling me elephants are orange? What? You get way off track all the time. No.
Okay. All right. Let me ask it a more straightforward way then. Are parasites a kind of animal?
Are parasites a kind of animal? I think man has decided to divide living things up into divisions of single-cell creatures, animals, plants. A parasite would be a living thing. Whether it's in the animal category, I don't think it cares what category we put it in.
Well, I'm not asking it, sir. I mean, no animal cares. I'm not debating like some animal, unless you want to consider yourself an animal. I'm debating you, right? This is all about how man defines things, because you say that the kinds which are a thing that man defined,
Right.
that it can't cross those things, right? So I mean, now I'm asking a man whether or not man defines parasites as a kind of animal. I think it's a pretty straightforward question.
To my understanding, it's been a long time since I studied that in biology, but parasites go into two categories. Some are photosynthetic, and we would put them, I guess, in the plant category, and some are like different. That's why I said I can't answer that question right now. I'd have to do some more study, but I don't care if it's an animal or a plant.
Is? Well, you don't know what a parasite
I didn't
is?
say I didn't know what a parasite was.
Photosynthetic. What are you talking about? Do you know what a parasite is?
I didn't say I didn't know what it was. I said I didn't know if it's an animal or a plant. If you put it in the animal category. If it makes you happy, you can put it in the animal category. I don't know.
Well, sure, then let's put it in the animal category. It's a kind of animal, right? That make me happy.
You put it in that category. Go
ahead.
I want
you to put it in the animal category, sir.
I said I have to do some more study before I can do that. It may be. For the purpose of this discussion, I will take your word for it that the parasite is an animal.
Okay. Well, great. So, sir, if a body's cells could become cancerous and then start becoming transmissible, like a disease or a parasite, and spread across a population like a pathogen, then that would also be another example of a change in kind, right?
No, it still requires a host. It still requires nutrients. It's not a new kind. It's a cell that is mutated. It's been a loss of information. I don't think anybody wants any kind of cancer. And so cancer is going to turn your amoeba
wants any kind of parasite either, sir.
What now? I didn't hear that.
I said nobody wants any kind of parasite either, sir.
Okay. Well,
right.
My objection for 30 years now has been the evolution being taught with these family trees, and evidence you're giving is cancer, is evidence that justifies we teach kids that all animals, because suppose we said yes. Suppose we said yes, a cancer is a new kind of animal. Where would you go? What's your next point you'd want to make from that? I'm not going to agree to that.
That's it. That's all I want. That's all I want out of you, sir.
I did not agree to it. Okay, let's just go on from there. Let's assume it's a new kind of animal.
We're gonna go around and around on this one. That's the point of the debate. So, sir, what I want out of you is I want you to tell me the obvious. I want you to tell me that a single-celled parasite living, like, let's make a hypothetical example, okay? Let's pretend that there was a dog many years ago and it got cancer, right? And so the cancer cells, they are dog cells, right? It's just that they're now growing without regard to the rest of the body. And then that dog has sex with another dog. And the cancer cells do something very unusual. They hop and they get from the original female dog and they get into the male dog. And now they start growing as a tumor in the male dog. Then the male dog has sex with another female dog. And the cancer cells hitch a ride from that male into that female. And now that second female has a tumor growing in that second female. And so on and so on. And the cancer spreads not like a cancer, because cancers just spread in one body, but this cancer then becomes a transmissible venereal disease. Okay. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
I do.
It's not my question yet, but do you understand? Were you with me so far?
Right.
Okay. So I put it to you that a transmissible venereal disease is a different kind of life than a dog. Would you agree with that?
The venereal disease, you're saying that is a different, well, you're talking about cellular stuff here now. The DNA in the sperm can go on for thousands of generations. It's still an amazing DNA code that had to be designed. So that's interesting. You're saying that this venereal disease, whether it be virus or bacteria or however it's spread.
It's not a virus. It's not a bacteria. It's actually dog cells.
Dog cells, okay.
It's the dog. It's the dog's own cells
that are mutated.
The dog,
and they've been mutated.
Mutate very slight mutations, but key mutations, very weird mutations, right? And now those what were once part of the dog are now not living as part of the dog. They're living as a venereal disease.
Where are they living? And where are they living at?
Where are they living?
They're still living in a dog.
They're living in other dogs.
Right. Still in a dog. Right. Still have to have a host. Right.
Right. Yeah. It still has to have a host. What I'm asking you is whether or not you will agree with me that dogs and venereal diseases are different forms of life. Would you agree with that?
I guess I never thought of that. Is a venereal disease a life form? I'd have to give that more time to think on that one. I won't promise I'll do it for my homework. I keep a busy life, but
Sir, all right. Well, give me a qualified answer then.
okay.
Subject to your further research, are dogs and venereal diseases different forms of life?
I said I studied that. You're still asking for the same answer. I already said I'm not going to give you one now. If I breathe in,
well, you're not going to give it to me at all. You're afraid of the question that much.
If I breathe out some of the air and it still contains oxygen, and you breathe it in, are you now Kent Hovind? You took in my oxygen. Is our oxygen molecules living?
I have no idea why you're talking about that or what you're even talking about. Let's bring it back to the question I was asking you, which was if it's a really simple question. Venereal diseases and dogs, they're different kinds. No?
Well, let's go back to my analogy with the oxygen. Oxygen molecules are vibrating and they're moving. Are they alive? They can be transmitted from one person to another easily. That's where it goes back to man's definition of what is life, what is kind, what is species. This is all us putting these things in a box. So I said I would study that if I get time. Is a venereal disease a different organism? I've never thought of it. Don't know. Don't have an answer.
Okay. All right, sir. I think we both know the answer to that is a very obvious yes.
You know the answer. In your mind, it's a yes. I did not say it's in my mind. It's not a yes in my mind. But go ahead.
I know you didn't say it, sir, because I know you're afraid. Right. I'm going to throw it back in your face forever.
Move on.
All right. Well, let's talk about faces then a little more. So, sir, have you ever heard of something called DFTD, or devil facial tumor disease?
Devil facial tumor disease. No, I haven't heard of that one.
Okay. Well, sorry, before we go into DFTD, let's just put a pin in this. So that the dog thing that I was talking about, not hypothetical. It's a real thing. It's called Sticker's sarcoma, or CTVT, canine transmissible venereal tumor. It's a real thing. But let's move on. DFTD. You ever heard of it?
No.
No. Well, if you'd done your homework, you would have.
You don't know his wife's name? If you'd have done your homework, you'd know that.
I don't think anybody knows Noah's wife's name.
Yeah, they do.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, Joan of Arc.
No, I like that actually.
Okay, go ahead.
That's not accurate, but it is funny.
Okay.
Anyway, so sir, as I said before, I know that you haven't researched this, but so what that means is that you're not going to.
We lost audio here, Donnie.
Mr. Anderson, you cut out maybe about 5 seconds ago. I'm not sure if your external audio got unplugged or.
Well, give me a chance to catch up on all the things he's brought up. So far, his entire argument for 2 debates has been. Yeah, I get a chance to respond here. Your entire argument for 2 whole debates for hours and hours here has been bad things, cancer, tumors, diseases. You're trying to make a new kind out of those things. Do you have anything that's, nice and sweet and positive? That's a new kind?
No, I'm kind of a mean guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got venereal disease.
Back to the main stuff. Yeah, back to the main stuff. Devil facial tumor disease. It's another cancer. Yeah, it's another cancer. This time it originated in a female Tasmanian devil in northeastern Tasmania in the early to mid 1990s. So I want you to assume a few things, and you can we'll qualify this in terms of if you want to check them later and you want to and you find out that any of these things that I'm telling you are not true, then you can challenge that. But I want you to assume the following things are true. So number one, I want you to assume that DFTD, devil facial tumor disease, is a cancer that originated in a female Tasmanian devil in northeastern Tasmania in the early to mid 1990s. I want you to assume it causes facial tumors. I want you to assume this cancer is transmitted to new hosts by social interaction, especially biting and scratching. I want you to assume it is made up of cells that are 99.999% identical to the original animals. So these cells are only about as different as melanoma or lung cancer cells are to regular human cells. I want you to assume that Tasmanian devils live around 5 years. So the original female is long dead. And I want you to assume that these cells have been spreading from devil to devil across Tasmania for over the last 30 years, like a disease or like a parasite, and that they are threatening this population with extinction. You got all that?
Okay, I understand.
All right, now assuming all those things, would you agree with me that DFTD is an example of a creature, being the Tasmanian devil, changing into a creature of a different kind, that is a parasitic unicellular organism?
No, it sounds to me like what you described is a mutated cell that was already alive as a dog cell or Tasmanian devil cell, and something went wrong, it got mutated and damaged. So it's not a new kind of life, it's a kind of existing life that's now gone crazy, like the Hamas folks over there blowing people up.
And it's living in a very different way, right?
I don't know.
You think the Tasmanian devils usually go in and live as parasites in other Tasmanian devils? You think that's the way they normally go?
Well, I've never had a Tasmanian devil for a pet. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you they usually stay mammals, right?
Okay. So it's the
this one Tasmanian devil that didn't, stay as a Tasmanian devil, and part of it broke off and became essentially a parasite, a disease. It's living a pretty different life than most normal Tasmanian devils. Those cells, I mean, they're living a pretty different life, right?
Okay. No. So you said it's 99.99999% identical dog or Tasmanian devil DNA. So did it start off as a Tasmanian devil DNA cell and mutated into this bad thing that it is today? Or did it just come out of nowhere?
No, the first one.
So it took an existing code of a Tasmanian devil cell, which is more complex than the space shuttle, and something went wrong. And now you're calling that a new kind?
You got it.
So if we get a car that's been wrecked and the one side's caved in, it's now a new kind. It's no longer a car.
No. If that car then got wrecked and then it somehow started being used as a stove, then maybe your analogy would kind of work. But I think that even that's pretty tortured. No, I mean, sir, like this is a living thing that's now living in a completely different way. It's got a completely different life cycle. It's a disease now.
But it started from an existing, very complex Tasmanian devil cell. I don't know how many chromosomes Tasmanian devils have. Maybe you can Google that for me, Joe. But you need to study how complex a chromosome is. The fact that one's mutated and changed, people can take a ball bat that's used to play baseball with and use it to kill somebody. Is it now is it a weapon now? It's still a ball bat. So I think it's still a cell. I think it's still a Tasmanian devil cell that is mutated. And the fact that it can pass on, well, so did the sperm cell. So does the DNA in the sperm. You get passed on generation after generation after generation.
Right. So, sir, the thing is that, I mean, you say that things can never change kinds. And we talked before at length about how if things change, even though they came from a certain thing, and even though they share DNA, that if they change enough, that means that they're a new kind. Like all it would take for a cow to be a new kind would be for it to grow gills and live underwater, right?
That's an example we talked about. Of course, these things don't happen. Again, you're back in your fairy tale world. That doesn't happen. Show me one that happens.
We're trying to talk about that, but I'm trying to make sense of what you're telling me. So if a cow grows gills and lives underwater, that's enough to be a new kind, right?
Maybe, or maybe it's just a variety of cow. Now we have the aquatic cow. I don't know. Are you sure that's
Sir, do I need to go back and read the transcript where you agreed that would be a new kind?
Well, the cows don't care how we classify them, sir. We got three different kinds of cows.
I know that, sir. But the thing is that we do care about how we classify them, and you're the one who cares about how we classify them in this particular situation. And now you're trying to change the classifications because you don't want to agree. Now you won't even agree that a cow that could jump over the moon, or that can fly, or that can grow gills and breathe underwater, you won't even agree that those things are changes of kind. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, this is the problem with defining the word species or kind, either one. Scientists have had trouble since the beginning. They admit that. They don't know. Are there birds that fly? Are there birds that can't fly? Why do we classify the emu as a bird? They can't fly.
What I'm hearing you say, sir, sorry, go ahead and finish.
It goes back to man's trying to put our understanding on these animals. We have emus here, and they're friendly, and they have feathers. They have some classifications that somebody decided to put them in the bird category. They don't care. All they look for is another emu to mate with. They don't look for the other birds. We got ducks here. They don't show any interest in the ducks. So I think the animals are smarter than the humans. They know what they're looking for. So if a cow grew wings and could fly, that would be, I think, again, fairy tale world, chasing Zelda, but it's may just be a new variety of cow. Maybe we have to make, now there's 450 breeds of cows.
All right,
Maybe
I'm going to stop you there, sir, because you're clearly filibustering. So what I was going to say, like, I don't know, it was like probably well over a minute ago, was that I think the real problem that you're having with defining kinds, because that was what you were talking about like way back, is that then once you've given a definition, then somebody like me can show up and show you that that kind of means that you can change kinds. That's the real problem with defining kinds, isn't it, sir?
No, you didn't show up and show me anything, sir, other than you can waste filibuster for hours on this, okay? Nobody has seen any animal or plant produce a different kind. If you're
Except
saying a
you
cancer,
and
I have not seen it. You have, okay?
Well,
in your mind, a human cell becomes cancerous and is able to grow and be transmitted to another human or rat or anything else. That's a new kind. Is that all you're trying to do with this debate? Is try to argue over that one word? But God,
that's the whole debate. That's the whole debate. Yeah,
okay.
Everything is about lines on paper, sir. It's all lines on paper. Right? You're drawing lines on paper between the kinds, right? And I'm saying that those lines are wrong, right? That's it. That's the whole debate.
Okay, so God said they'd bring forth after their kind. Do these cancer cells, after they're taken out, produce more cancer cells, or do they start producing birds?
No, they just stay as cancer cells. I mean, I don't know what you want to call it. Like, you know, we could still call it a Tasmanian devil that's living as a parasite if you want. But I mean, I would say that that's a different kind. I would start calling it a parasite. So, I mean, you know, that's pretty arbitrary, right? It's like that colored, you know, gradation, right? And this whole thing has been about, you know, me trying to get you to draw a line, you know, between red and orange. And then, you know, me showing you that, like, in every single, wherever you want to draw the line, there's things that cross it, right?
Well,
and that's kind of the whole thing.
Right. The color spectrum, you know, from where does exactly change from red to orange? Good example, okay? Where exactly does it change from a dog to something else? The fact that we can't...
where does it change? When does a Tasmanian devil stop being a Tasmanian devil? Is it still a Tasmanian devil if it stops being a mammal altogether, goes back to being a single-celled organism and starts living as a disease? Is it still a Tasmanian devil, or is it something new?
Yeah, that's... is it Tasmanian devil cells that are still there? They still have a similar DNA, 14 chromosomes they have. But that is because of your examples here, all of them negative, by the way, viruses, bacteria, cancer. Therefore, we should teach kids these charts, that a horse and a banana are related. This is my objection.
No. Well, sir, I can clarify that objection for you too. No, I'm not saying that. We can talk about that another time. All I want you to admit is that when a Tasmanian devil's cells stop being Tasmanian devils and then they change into being a disease, that those are clearly different kinds of living thing. Like diseases and Tasmanian devils are different kinds. I mean, you know, if you don't want to admit that, then I don't think you're being particularly intellectually honest.
If you don't want to admit that, then you're going to do what?
I'm saying, sir, that it's such an obvious statement that if you don't want to admit it, it's clear that the reason you don't want to admit it is because you just don't want to lose a debate.
Oh, no, I'm not worried about losing a debate. I think I'm winning.
Well, then just say that. Well, then just state the obvious. I mean, you're not going to tell me. Are you going to sit there and tell me that viruses and people are the same?
No, I think people.
Are you going to sit there and tell me that tapeworms and people are the same?
Have there always been since the beginning viruses or bacteria? Bacteria have been around for a long time.
That's a really good question, sir. I'd love to hear the answer to that. Is there Have viruses and bacteria always been here since the beginning?
I think bacteria, most of them are very helpful in lots of things. You have to have bacteria to break down human waste. You have to have
Right, but
bacteria
have they been viruses and bacteria, both of them? Have they been here since the beginning?
I don't know. I'll ask the Lord when I get there.
Well, what
So,
would just check the Bible?
It doesn't mention anything about it. It has a
I
lot
know.
of
I
stats.
thought you said that if it wasn't in there, it didn't happen. So doesn't that mean that God didn't create bacteria or viruses?
Where on earth did you get all that? No, I didn't
I
say
don't
any
know,
of that.
man. I got a crazy brain.
Okay.
You know what?
You got a
Let's
crazy-
leave that one. It's kind of off topic anyways. This is something I was wondering
Right.
about. But let's go back. Let's talk about Tasmanian devils then.
Talk about the what now?
The Tasmanian devil
The
turns
Tasmanian
into a
devil.
disease.
The,
Remember
I-
this? This is recently we talked about this.
for the 8th time, I said I will study that. The Tasmanian devil cell already existing mutated and became bad. Okay. It's still a very complex cell, I'm assuming. Is
Yeah,
this
it's almost identical.
new cell that was created from an old cell mutated now? You're saying that is a new kind because it
I'm
can
just
go
saying
to another
Tasmanian
host.
devils and diseases are a different kind. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what your whole thing was last time we talked about. Your cancer cell is proof of evolution. That's a new kind.
Well, it's not
And
proof of evolution, sir. I don't know how many times I got to tell you that. I feel like you're the one who's trying to get me to prove evolution. I mean, you want to admit that evolution is true? Because I'm not even trying to get you to admit that.
No. I have asked Donnie to schedule debates from here on out. I want you guys who believe in evolution to show me some evidence for evolution. Is your evidence for evolution for these family trees? Is your evidence the viruses, the cancer? Is that your evidence?
My evidence. I'm not trying to prove evolution. I'm trying to prove that things can change kinds. Right.
Okay.
I mean, eventually, if you wanted, we could try and get to that, but you kind of have a wall up, right? And you can't kind of break that down all at once. It's got to kind of go brick by brick. So I've got to try and prove one little thing. And then once I can get you to accept that, then we can kind of move on to the next thing, right? So right now, I don't want to argue the genetic entropy with you. I don't want to argue whether or not information is real or not. I don't want to argue any of that stuff. All I want to say is that, look, things can, you said there's a limit, right? There's a limit to how much something can change. An organism can't change beyond a certain amount. And I'm going, well, here's a thing that really breaks the limit. It goes from one of the simplest things that you can imagine, and it's coming from one of the most complex things that you can imagine. And it's doing that in one generation. So it cannot be that there is a limit. It just cannot be.
Well,
right?
Is this new virus living in the Tasmanian devil? Is it a living cell? Does it still have the original chromosome? Is it degraded from the original? It's my understanding
It's got a mutation. That's it.
All of the mutations remove information. I'm not aware of any that have added helpful information.
What's information? What's information? Go outside, give me a bucket of information. Paint it red.
Yeah. If you look at a computer code, the zeros and ones in a computer code, you can have one mistake and it shuts everything down.
There's no computers in cells, sir. There's no
computers. It's way more complex than a computer. It's a 4-digit code.
But it doesn't have information if that's how you define information.
But see, that's where what little bit I've studied this in the past, all the mutations I've ever seen, and I've studied maybe a few hundred of them, are harmful, negative, or useless. The Tasmanian devil getting a disease is not going to change the Tasmanian devil to anything else, like these trees they show, these family trees. This is, I think, it's evil that we're teaching the kids. My mission in life is to get this kind of stuff out of the textbook, because this isn't science. This whole family tree is a fairy tale.
That one that you got on the screen, you mean? That one that you got on the screen? Sorry, this whole family tree, by that you mean the one you got on the screen?
All of these family trees, there's no evidence. This one shows a human and a starfish being related.
Yeah, that one's garbage. The one you got up there, that one's garbage. Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, it's still in the textbook. Are you doing anything to get that out of the textbook? Canadian textbooks have this. I got Canadian textbooks right here. They still teach this. You're more concerned about Tasmanian devil.
I do not care. I could care less about what the school policy is in Alabama.
No, I'm talking about Canada. Canadian textbooks are teaching the kids they're related to a mosquito. That doesn't bother you?
Sir, it doesn't matter what I think about that. All right, you know what? I think I've accomplished what I need to accomplish here, sir. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to you. So you know what?
Okay.
Go ahead and ask me whatever questions you want for however long you want.
Okay. Do you believe all life forms on the planet, elephants, humans, all of them, came from a common ancestor like the textbooks teach?
Sir, what I believe doesn't matter.
You said I could ask you any questions. I'm asking you a question.
I'm asking you. I'm answering your question.
You're evading my question.
No, I'm not evading your question.
Oh, you don't want to
answering
answer.
your question.
Very
I'm
simple.
answering your question. Do you want to hear the rest of my answer?
Here, would you agree with this textbook?
You don't want to hear the rest of my answer?
Right. Okay, yeah, go ahead and give your answer. All right, a simple question. Simple question. Do you believe all life forms had a common ancestor?
All right. You know what? Here, I'm going to help you out here. So, what I said before is still true. What I think doesn't matter, and I will bust you on that later. But I'm going to answer this one, for you generally. Look, in my opinion, my personal opinion, if we're looking at the evidence, I think that the evidence suggests that all of the animals and plants, all of the life forms are related somehow. They share some common ancestor. Does that help you?
Thank you for answering my question.
I'm doing my best. Go ahead.
Right. Is it a possibility that all things have some similarities because they have a common designer? Is that another reasonable option?
Those are two questions. Those are two different questions. Which one do you want me to answer? The first one or the second one? Is it possible? Yes. Is it reasonable? No.
So it's not reasonable that all the creatures had a common designer. And why would you say that?
Well, okay, maybe I overstated that. It is certainly possible that that there is a designer going about behind the scenes and guiding evolution. I kind of thought that you were talking more about separately created kinds, right? But if you're saying is it possible that that God is guiding evolution? Yeah, sure, that's possible.
Do we see any limits to this evolution, as we'll call it? We see all kinds of dogs. I'll show you an example here. Actually, I made up a new one. I think I'd have to go to the end here. I think we would agree there are different skin colors of people, dark skinned, light skinned, and they probably had a common ancestor called a human.
The humans don't care what you call them, sir.
Yeah. And I think that it's there. That's not in here. I've been busy today. So I think there are now 339 recognized breeds of dogs that I think we probably would agree had a common ancestor called a dog. Are there limits to the size of a dog? They've now gotten a dog 4 inches tall, teacup chihuahua. Will they ever get a dog a half-inch tall? Do you believe there's a limit?
I mean, if we're going down, sir, they've gotten a dog that's a single cell. We just got, we covered that with the, CVTV, right? But do you want to go up? I mean, I think better. Maybe we should go up. Like, can you ever get a dog the size of a bear or something like that?
Okay. Will they ever get a dog as big as Alberta?
We covered this, sir. We covered this last time.
Just answer it again. Then it should be simple. If you already covered it, answer it again. Yes or no.
Will they ever get a dog the size of Alberta? No.
Okay. So there is a limit. You're admitting that so you agree with me. There's a limit on dog size.
There are limits imposed by the laws of physics. Yeah.
Good. So there are limits. And so far, all we've ever observed in all of human history is dogs produce dogs. Might be big, might be small. And you don't agree with that?
No, because we've also seen dogs produce venereal diseases.
And so the dog produced a venereal disease, so the dog is producing a new kind?
Right. Well, it's not a dog. I wouldn't say it. Would you say that the venereal disease is a dog?
Well, I said I would study that.
The venereal disease doesn't really care what we call it. Really, what we should do is put the venereal disease in a pen with a dog and see whether they interbreed. And I bet you the venereal disease will just divide like a venereal disease, and the dog will mate with the dog, and it won't even acknowledge the venereal disease.
And do the venereal disease cells reproduce asexually, or
Yeah.
do they reproduce?
Yeah.
How do they?
Yeah.
How do they?
Asexually. Yeah.
They
Yeah,
just
they're just
simply
going to do
divide.
their own thing. They're not going to show any interest in the dog, and the dog's not going to show any interest in the
Right.
venereal
That's a good.
disease.
That's a good thing. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a good thing. Let's see.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's how you can tell that they're different kinds. Like, see, the venereal disease in the dog, they know their kind, sir, even if you don't.
yeah, and I said I would look at that. What is
Well,
all of the
I'm just
examples you've
helping.
given?
I'm
as I
helping you
said,
see. I'm helping you look.
Yeah, all of the examples you've given: cancer, venereal disease. Let's see, tumors. You think that is enough evidence to convince you that the Bible is wrong when it said they'd always bring forth after their kind?
No, sir. I'm not saying the Bible is wrong. I would never call God a liar. I'm saying you're wrong.
Well, they've got what people, some say 250, some say 450. Cows can jump. Here's a cow jumping over a 6-foot fence. They can jump.
Sir, I'm really not that interested in engaging with your script, especially when we've talked about this already.
Yep.
We talked about this last time for like, I don't know, 45 minutes. Don't you remember? You gave me the gears about it. Why are we doing
You're
it
one
again?
to talk about following a script. You follow the script every time. So you agree with me. Okay. My contention is no farmer in the history of the world has ever observed a cow produce a non-cow or a dog produce a non-dog. They always produce the same kind. Now, are they producing I don't think any farmer in the world would think, wow, my cow produced a venereal disease. That's a new kind of animal. Wow, let's market these and sell them. Let's milk them.
I would hope that they don't sell them, but sorry, it was a dog that produced the venereal disease.
I think the illustration is, I will put some time into it if I get time, but there are a lot more things more important to me than that. But I don't think it's I don't think it's evidence for evolution.
Do you know what we call people who have better things to do than to review the academic literature in preparation for a serious debate? Do you know what we call them? Laymen.
Wow. I thought it was my turn to ask the questions.
I'm answering the question, but go ahead.
So there are 450 breeds of cows, and God said they'd bring forth after their kind. If a cow gets a venereal disease or an udder infection, is that now a new kind? Is now no longer a cow?
Is the venereal disease cells from another cow?
I don't know. That's why it's
you're hypothetical. You should know. This thing that you made up. This thing that you made up in your imagination, in your SpongeBob, is the infection part of another cow?
Okay, I will admit to you that I know almost everything in the world, but not everything, and I will study that. Okay.
Well, yeah, no, I think that is clear. That is very clear, sir.
Okay. Nothing about any animal has evolved in all of human history. We've gotten bigger cows and littler cows, and we've run into a brick wall. They always
I think you have run into a brick wall. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the world's record producer for milk, 185 pounds a day. I don't think you'll ever get a cow give 10 trillion tons a day. Do you believe they'll ever get a cow to give 10 trillion tons of milk a day?
Do you even need me for this part? I mean,
no. Is there a limit?
Well, of course not. I don't even understand. Like, so this seems very related to your question about like, something the size of Alberta or British Columbia or wherever.
Right.
Like, I mean, who cares?
I care. Oh, I care very much. I think there are limits. I think we've got dogs with long hair that can survive the cold weather. We've got dogs with short hair that like the desert, the dingo, long legs to keep away the body heat from the heat of the desert. I think there's a variety of dogs. I think God designed the original dog with a gene code that can produce variations. I think
one of which is a venereal disease.
Oh yeah, okay. Same mom
Maybe
and dad.
That was designed. Maybe that was designed. Maybe God created that dog with that ability to make that to turn into a venereal disease in its gene.
Or maybe these diseases is our lack of following his word to certain vitamins or minerals we get from the ground. God said eat the seeds. Donnie, we're going nowhere. I got a long list of things to do. If your evidence for evolution, let me summarize here. Your evidence to have a new kind is viruses, cancer, tumors. And that's
we haven't even got to viruses yet. We haven't got to viruses yet.
Well, that's next on your list, I'm sure. Okay, cancers, tumors, and viruses. This is evidence for evolution.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Do you want to talk about viruses? We could probably do it pretty quick.
No, it'll take 2 hours for you to answer any questions on that. Let's do that another time. So your evidence
Round
for
3 viruses, gentlemen.
Okay. Your evidence for evolution so far, this last debate and this debate, is tumors, and they can live outside the host if you feed them in a petri dish. Cancer cells, and next you'll do viruses, okay, or bacteria. These
I don't know.
are
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll do something. Maybe we'll do something else. Maybe we'll do the
We'll do a
geological.
different order. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
But anyway,
maybe we'll do that. I don't know.
This is your evidence that makes you not want to believe that there's a limit that they can't produce a new kind. Again, it goes back to the definition of the word kind or species, which both are nebulous terms, okay? Species. What's a species? A kind.
Who cares?
Well, Webster Dictionary does. You better call them and correct them. Species is not a kind. They said it is. Look at that right there. Synonyms.
All right.
Merriam-Webster, one of the biggest dictionaries in the world. Synonyms. Kind. Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, that makes my job a lot easier, sir, because I can just show you one of any number of speciation events, and then that's a creation of a new kind.
Right. Species. That's where the definition of terms is like we've decided to call a dog and a wolf a different species.
Right. No, I mean, if you want to equivocate kind and species, I mean, I'm fine with that.
To this day, scientists struggle with the question, what is a species? The debate over species definition is far from over. Scientific American. Wow. Embarrassment of definitions.
Is there a question anywhere in my future? This is your opportunity to try and repair the damage that I've done to you with respect to the cancer example.
The damage that you have done to me? That was a tree limb. No, sir, that was a tree limb. I'll be fine, okay? No, you've not done any damage, okay? You have demonstrated.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. I hope we can still be friends.
Okay, no, you have demonstrated clearly that there is no evidence for real evolution. No evidence at all. What you've shown is degradation of cells. Take an existing cell, mutate it down where it loses information, and that's proof how we got everything. I think you've shown clearly that evolution is stupid, real stupid.
Okay.
Okay?
Gentlemen, did you want to, in our final minutes here, take some live audience questions?
Okay, sure. I'm game.
Sorry, was that your conclusion there, sir?
Or you guys can take it, or you guys can take 2 minutes each and wrap up your thoughts and points if you'd like.
Yeah.
Mr. Anderson, let's start with you since you started with your opening statement. Take 2 minutes uninterrupted, sum up your thoughts, sum up your points. We'll do the same for Kent, and then we'll take some audience questions, both live for those who want to join. I do have the StreamYard link posted and also just written comments that have come in. Anderson, go ahead.
All right. Last time, Dr. Hovind tried very hard to evade my questions to the point where we spent about an hour trying to figure out the definition of kind. Ultimately, however, he agreed that if a human or part of a human could stop being a human and in one single generation change such that it was living as a single-celled creature, that this would count as being a different kind. Now, I imagine he thought he was on safe ground because he didn't think such a thing could exist. But it does, and it's called cancer. Dr. Hovind then said that this would not count unless the cancer could live outside the body on its own. I gave him 3 weeks to research whether that exists before answering questions about it. He wasted those weeks. It turns out that there are examples of cancer cells living on their own outside the body. It's happened in humans with the HeLa cells, it's happened spontaneously in dogs, and it happened recently in Tasmanian devils. So, do dogs produce dogs? No. Rarely, they produce a single-celled parasite. Do Tasmanian devils always produce Tasmanian devils? No. Sometimes they bring forth a single-celled parasite. Do humans always produce humans? No. Sometimes they produce an immortal line of cells that can live forever in a petri dish as single-celled organisms. All of these things did that in a single generation. They went from complex multicellular life to being unicellular organisms. Now, if that barrier can be crossed in one leap, then Dr. Hovind's notion of limits to change is baloney. He often asks, will they ever get a dog as small as a flea? Well, they've gotten one much smaller than that. It's a single-celled organism, but I don't think that you would even call it a dog anymore. Of course, the animals don't care what you call them. The single-celled parasites of dogs or Tasmanian devils Don't try to interbreed with dogs or devils, respectively. That's it. Go ahead, Dr. Hovind.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson, for those concluding comments. We'll now hand it over to Dr. Dino. Whenever you're ready, take a few minutes, and the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, sir. Well, God said 24 times in the first 7 chapters they'd bring forth after their kind, and I guess we'd have to go back and define the word produce. They produce. I think dogs produce dogs. Did the dogs produce? Did the disease attack the dog and become part of the dog? Is this now an unwelcome renter in the house? And as I said, these mutated cells cannot live outside of a host. They have to suck off of somebody. And the fact that they can be transmitted, I don't know. Is this actually? This is not a new kind. I don't think anybody with a functioning brain cell would say the dog changed into something else. They bring forth, make babies. Did the dog make this as a baby? The virus, or this mutated cell? The cells that we've seen are degraded. So somebody sent the note, the VD attacked the dog. The dog didn't create the venereal disease, okay? So I think God's word has stood true so far, and all of every testing it's been through. They've always bring forth after their kind. And I think you're really showing desperation to say, well, it produced a cancer cell, therefore that's evidence for evolution. That's not evidence for these dumb family trees they put in there. That is lines on paper is all it is. And I feel sad that kids have to learn this stuff and they think they're related. You think all life forms are related. Therefore, I can put words in your mouth based on what you said. You believe you're related to a potato because it's a living thing. They're all on that chart. All the plants, all the animals go back to a common ancestor. Look at that. So it's sad that you're welcome to believe that, but it's certainly not science. It's imagination. And you're welcome to, it's a religion. You're welcome to keep your religion, but I don't want to pay for that religion to be taught in schools anywhere. So I think you should get it out. This is propaganda. I think that when you stand before the creator, what you may or may not believe in, he's going to say, Kent tried to tell you, his word is true. I believe there's overwhelming evidence that the earth is not billions of years old, which takes away the time you need for these little changes to add up to something major. I think we could talk about that sometime. The spin of the earth slowing down, the moon receding, the sun's burning up its fuel. There's all kinds of things that show, hey, this universe cannot be billions of years old. You don't have the time. Even if this little change producing a mutated cell, even if that does make a new kind in your mind, there's not enough time for that to change an amoeba to a whale. There's not enough time. So I think evolution fails at every step of the way. There's no evidence for any helpful new information being added. This virus or this mutated cell is degraded. And you want to call it a new kind? Okay. Anyway, no, I think we've seen clearly that, to sum up, I win, you lose. All right, take questions.
All right, Kent and Mr. Anderson, you've given us another fast-paced, back-and-forth discussion for a round 2 to remember. So
I agree.
Sir,
I just want to, just before we take questions, I just want to say, Dr. Hovind, I enjoyed that very much. And I hope sincerely that, like we go at each other pretty hard, and that's kind of why I like these and why I do them. But I'm not attacking you personally,
right.
And I hope that you're not taking any of the comments that I make personally.
No, and I'll leave you Pascal's wager. If you're right, I haven't lost anything. I've had a wonderful life. If I'm right, you're in trouble when you die.
Well, sir, I think I'll be okay when I die, but
okay.
I do appreciate your concern for my soul.
Okay.
I understand that that we're just like I said, we're gladiators. We're just duking it out for for the sport of it.
Just a couple of gladiators duking it out in the debate octagon. So you gave us some good entertainment, Kent and Mr. Anderson from the Matrix. So I do appreciate both of your time. Okay, so what we'll do is get some of the text questions in first. Power round with the text questions, just so we can have a few minutes with live questions too, from audio video. Okay, here's a question from RoboJet. Question for Anderson. If a cell becomes cancerous and is taken out of a host, and the cell produces more cells of itself. How is that a new kind when compared to the host?
So originally the cell was part of the body, right? And now it has left the body and it is doing something else, and it is living in a new way. And it is essentially like, I think the easiest way to understand this is that I think that we could all agree that dogs and venereal diseases are different kinds. They're different kinds of life. And so that is how it is a new kind. It is not a dog anymore. It is now a venereal disease. You wouldn't call that a dog.
So you're saying originally the cell was part of the body, part of the host. Now, since it's left the body, it's on its own, doing its own thing, having its own functions, and so it's a new kind, is basically
it's living a completely different, style. It's got a new niche. It's got a different food source. It's microscopic now instead of being the size of a cat, I think, in the case of Tasmanian devils. Like, pretty much everything about it that you like. If we're going to talk about morphological changes and inability to interbreed, like, I don't think you could get more dramatic morphological changes. And certainly its style of reproduction is completely different.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Kent, any thoughts on that, brother?
No, we've beat that horse in the ground. That's plenty.
For 2 debates, that's for sure. Okay, so next one comes in from Alec Cox, $20 super chat. Question for Anderson. Do you know that all cells have a programmed death, and that cancer is a cell that the program failed and thus only replicates itself, undetectable only because it still contains the chemical identity?
Yeah, so that's right. One of the genes that you need if you're going to be a multicellular organism is this thing called programmed cell death. And if that breaks, then it's essentially like a cooperation gene, right? Like, because each of these cells has to be kind of sacrificing themselves for the good of the body as a whole. And it's okay because a copy of your genes are going to be, going forward from the gametes. And so it's an unselfish cell with a selfish gene. What happens is that the programmed cell death, one of the cooperation genes breaks, then the cell stops cooperating. And yeah, it's difficult for the body to detect because it is still you. It's still part of you. I mean, except in situations where it leaves the body and becomes a facial tumor or something. And I think there had to be some other mutations that I don't really understand that allowed that the tumor not to be recognized as foreign in the new bodies, but it happens.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Kent, any thoughts?
Well, the cancer cells still has to have some kind of nutrients supplied to it as a host or put it in a petri dish. Somebody's got to feed it. Even the cancer cells have to be fed. So that's not evolution.
Okay, thank you, Kent. Anderson, did you want a quick final word?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have to think about this in terms of, like, people keep saying that, well, it's just breaking. It's not, it's not an improvement, or it's not better. Well, I mean, it's better for that cancer cell. Like, Henrietta Lacks's cells are still alive, and every one of her friends is dead. So, I guess it really depends on, who we're saying it's better for.
Okay, the next few questions come in from live audience members, so let me bring them in. I do want to give a disclaimer, as I usually do. This is an open mic Q&A, and so questions end in question marks. No monologues, no presentations, no lectures. We want clear and concise questions, and please also let us know your position briefly. Unless we're already familiar with you, like the 3 here, we already know what your positions are, and then let us know what the question is for, and then go ahead. So first on the panel was Josh. So Josh, good to have you. Appreciate it. Who's your question for? And pose that question.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a creationist. I believe God created everything. I have a question for Mr. Anderson, and Ken, if you want to touch on it, you're more than welcome to. How do you explain mules? If you take a donkey and a horse and you breed them, they produce a mule, which is then a different kind that is not able to produce. So I mean, like Kent said, that if you put two animals in the same pen, and they'll know what to do and they'll know how to breed with each other and bring forth their kind, but they're not bringing forth their kind. They're bringing forth another kind that is not able to reproduce. So how do we explain that from the evolutionary standpoint?
Well, from an evolutionary standpoint, it's not really a problem because everything is just, you know, on a gradient, right? And so things can reproduce like a little bit this way and that way across the gradient. The problem really becomes, you know, when you have these hard, fast divisions, you know, then you run into a problem where, I mean, you know, like you said, by Dr. Hovind's definition, a horse and a mule aren't the same kind because the mule and the horse can't reproduce. But then I don't know if that's entirely fair because the mule is sterile, right? Like if you got a vasectomy, would we say that you're a different kind than I am because you're sterile? Like, I mean, I don't think that's super fair. So, you know, the thing is that there are problems with Dr. Hovind's definition of kind, and that's one of them.
Kent, would you like to respond?
Well, he said things are on a gradient. So in his mind, bacteria to whales, the horse and mule is just somewhere in that gradient. They're all related. I think there are definite limits. There are definite, what do you say, hard, fast divisions. I think there are. I think every farmer on the planet understands that. His corn is different than his cow. And everybody understands that except the evolutionists. They think corn and cow are related, have a common ancestor. So this gradient that they talk about is imaginary. The fact is we observe and have observed for all of history. Cows produce cows, dogs produce dogs. There are no exceptions, none. But they want to blow that line and say, oh, it's just a gradient. You know, no, it's not. There are clear divisions. Cows produce cows all the time. Man has selectively bred them to get a better trait of something they already had, more milk production. They don't selectively breed cows to get bigger wings so they can fly. They're not available to, it's not in the gene code. I think we're limited by the existing gene code of whatever the original one had. I think God made the original creatures with amazing genetic code. Look at the humans. Two humans can have 12 kids and they're all different from each other. They're still children, they're still human. There's definite yes, there is a definite boundary, a division. You're never going to go out of the category that anybody would call human. But in their mind, they imagine something non-human turned to a human. And we're all apes in their mind. And then before that, we were, a mosquito and then a virus and a bacteria. This is imagination. That's been my complaint for the last 33 years. I've been doing this ministry. Evolution doesn't happen in reality. It only takes place in the SpongeBob imagination world. It's not science.
Thank you, Kat. Josh, did you have anything you wanted to follow up with on that one for Mr. Anderson?
So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to, if you could explain how you said you try to compare that mules are sterile to a vasectomy. I'm under the impression that they usually sterilize mules because it leads to less aggressive behavior. So are they born sterile, or is that something that happens after the fact? Because a vasectomy is something that you go into the doctor and they do it. You're not, like Ken said, you could have 12 kids. One of those 12 kids may genetically be born with the inability to reproduce or without reproductive organs. That's a mutation, and then that doesn't support evolution at all. It ends. That's the end of the line there. So could you elaborate on the sterile part?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to be charitable to to Dr. Hovind's definition. I mean, my understanding is that mules, and actually there's actually mules and hinnies. Let's not forget about the hinnies, which are also horse and donkey hybrids. But sometimes the hinnies can be fertile, but almost always the mules are sterile. I think that I heard that there's been, and don't quote me on this because I mean I'm going based on what I heard, but I think there's been like 3 instances where there's a mule that was not sterile in the last since recorded history, and those limited ones have been able to be rebred into horses. And then that, if that's true, then that results in what they call horizontal gene flow, right? Which is where you basically you were able to actually get some of the genes from the donkey, for example, into the population of horses, and then it can circulate, within the population of horses. But yeah, they're usually sterile. Does that help you? Did I answer your question?
I think what I said was that are they born sterile, or is it something that they?
I think they're almost always born sterile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, appreciate it. We'll now move on to the next questioner, Darth Thoranes or Bubbles. Thoranis. There we go. Good to have you. And who's your question for? And
am I coming in clear first?
Yes, your audio is coming in good.
All right. I'm going to ask him a line of questioning, but can I be... Is that fine with you, Anderson? I'm gonna give
go for it. I love it.
I will say this, though, before you ask your lines of questioning. We will be doing a little bit of an open mic, just a shorter open mic tonight after Kent leaves. He's with us till the 2-hour mark. And so save any back and forth discussion for that. We want to be short and sweet with questions for now.
Yeah, all right, I'm gonna answer your questions like a witness. So
yeah.
Well, for now, one question. Save the line of questioning for the open mic portion.
Well, it's just gonna be a short line of questioning.
Well, you could save the short line of questioning.
I'll stick around. I promise you that. All right, I'll stick around.
You're gonna stick around for a bit, Bubble. So if we want, you can move to the next person. We'll save you for that. Okay, next on the panel, Ken Rock. No relation to The Rock. Good to have you. How you doing tonight? And who's your question for?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. My question is for Kent Hovind. So my question is, you say there is a limit to animals and that each kind is can't give forth from its own kind, but you can't give a definition of kind and you can't give a limit. So on what basis do you give that kinds can't give forth to other kinds?
Well, I think the definition of species and kind has always been very similar. As I mentioned, they use them interchangeably all through the dictionaries and even the science literature. What is a species? Well, a species is a kind or sort. I mean, this is see, I don't have to prove every single point. I'm not asking for my religion to be taught. I believe by faith there are no exceptions to animals producing other than their kind. But the evolutionists believe there are not only exceptions, it's a gradient. There are no lines. And they want that taught in schools as a science. And it's not science. It's not observable. All we've observed is cows produce cows. Big cows, little cows, but cows every time. So if you wish to believe that cow and a mosquito are related, that's fine. You can believe what you want, but don't call it science. And don't make everybody pay to put that in the school system. That's not science. It's a pollution of our science textbooks. Maybe you could be in a fairy tale class if you want to have a class of fairy tales. Long ago and far away, an amoeba evolved into a whale slowly over millions of years. It makes a great fairy tale, but that's all it is, the fairy tale. Yes, there's a limit. I think it's observable. Science is what we can observe, study, and test. We've observed you reach a limit with dogs. 4 foot tall, you don't ever get them 20 feet tall. They've been trying for a long time to give cows to give more milk, 185 pounds a day. Seems to be a limit. Somebody might get 200 next year, I don't know, but they're not going to get 10 trillion. There's a limit. Whether we reach the limit or not, I didn't say that, but there is a limit. And farmers have said for generations, it's all you're going to get.
Donnie, permission to give one follow-up question to that before I move on, before you move on to the next person?
Yes, you can have a follow-up question. Go ahead.
Sweet. Thank you very much. So my problem here is Europe putting down the burden, or at least making the claim that there is a limit. So by definition and how this works, you have a burden to fulfill proving what that limit is. And you're openly admitted that you don't know what the limit is or what it would be. So I'm asking you, what is the reasoning that you could say that there is a limit in with that reasoning?
It's garbled, Ken. I'm only getting part of your question. You said the burden is on me to do what now?
Okay, sorry, I'll try one more time. So you're the one with the claim that there is a limit, but you're also admitting that you have no reason or no definitive limit that you can prove or point to. So what is your reasoning to say there's a limit without any reasoning?
Well, we've had the Olympics going for a century now. Is there a limit to how fast a human can run? I think the world record now is 9 seconds for the 100-yard dash. Are they ever going to run that in 1 second? Is there a limit to human speed? Sure. Have we reached it? I don't know. They're always trying to break it, but they're not going to break it by much. There's a limit. There's a limit to cow size. There's a limit to, there seems to be a limit to all these things. But you guys who believe in evolution want to take away all the limits, and you think that amoeba, which is pretty small, is related to a whale, which is pretty big. All we've ever seen is amoeba make maybe amoebas. There are no exceptions to that. So if you wish to believe something else, believe what you want. I admit mine's a religion. You guys do not admit yours is a religion. And Donnie, I got a question about something on the screen when we're done here. Is that enough for Ken? Or for, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. You can move on to the next person.
And Kent, what's your question, brother?
The center picture I'm seeing is somebody with, is that Emma Thorne with a gun? I don't think people in England are allowed to have guns or even know what they are.
This is Emma Thorne's Darth Ark.
Emma Thorne, is she allowed to have a gun?
She does now. And she's extremely religious and an extremist.
Kent, that's a Photoshop picture. That picture's not real, man.
No, I'm Emma Thorne. I'm also now going through hormonal change. That's why I sound like a man.
your voice changed, Emma Thorne. I debated her, I think once or twice, maybe, I don't know. I'll do it again.
Yeah, you totally won the debate there, Kent. I admit, as Emma Thorne, you won that debate, and I am converted.
Yeah,
Kent, they're just trolling you, man.
Oh, I'm not trolling.
Okay, guys, let's well, you know what? We can we reached the 2-hour mark, Kent. I want to respect your time. Did we want to wrap up the debate portion with you and Mr. Anderson?
Well, yeah, I guess I'd leave with Pascal's wager. I'm enjoying life. I'm loving it. I think God made the world. I love the Lord with all my heart. And I think he said they'd bring forth after their kind. That's all anybody's ever seen. We've never seen an exception. Real science should leave the whole theory of evolution out. It's got nothing to do with science. It's a religious belief. And you can believe there's gradient if you want, but it's not observable. We don't see an amoeba produce a non-amoeba. And I will check out your things if I get time. You don't assign my homework, but I appreciate your concern for my intellectual studies.
Okay.
Well, I'm more than happy to contribute to your intellectual growth, Dr. Hovind, and thank you very much for the debate. I had a very enjoyable evening, and hopefully, as I say, I have not angered you too terribly much, and I look forward to interacting with you again sometime.
Come down, visit Dinosaur Adventureland. We'll give you a tour.
I think that means I'm off the hook, guys. I think he likes me.
You guys are still friends. You guys are still friends. I'll join you at Dinosaur Adventureland. I'll moderate an in-person debate between you two.
One more thing. We had a guy that was in the Hovind Hater Club, came in here as a spy to try to take the tour and find something about our place just a couple of days ago. What was his name? James. He did a Facebook page on us saying, man, that's a great place. I had a wonderful time. We converted him over. Mr. Anderson,
I'm not in the Hovind Hater Club, sir. I'm not. I say, I mean, I enjoy debating with you. I just, I give you a hard time, but that's just the nature of the beast.
So you agree with me that I'm right?
Oh no, not remotely. I do enjoy arguing with you.
Oh, okay.
Well, you guys got that in common. You guys are good at arguing with each other. One day we'll do an in-person one at Dell. So, Kent, thank you so much for your time. Mr. Anderson, you as well. This really was a great debate. Great round two. We'll have a complete trilogy one day. So, Kent, God bless you, brother, and you have a good sleep.